Another year slips by, and the promises made in January fade like morning mist by March. The goals written with such conviction gather dust on forgotten pages while life marches forward, indifferent to intentions. There's a moment that comes to every person, that quiet realization in the stillness of night or the chaos of a difficult day, when the truth becomes undeniable. This is it. This is the life being built. One choice at a time, one day at a time, and nobody else is coming to rescue it. The calendar doesn't care about excuses. Time moves at the same pace for the successful and the struggling, for the fulfilled and the frustrated. What separates them isn't luck, connections, or circumstances, though that's the comfortable lie most people tell themselves. The separation happens in a far more personal place, in the acceptance or rejection of a single life-altering truth. The person responsible for the quality of your life is staring back at you from the mirror every morning. When I was 25 years old, I had pennies in my pocket and nothing in the bank. My family was struggling, my promises were empty, and my future looked like a long, hard road to nowhere in particular. Then a man named Earl Schoaf asked me a question that changed everything. He didn't ask about my circumstances, my background, or my bad luck. He asked, "Jim, how much money have you saved in the last 6 years?" Nothing. Not a dime. Then he asked the question that cut through every excuse I'd been carrying around like badges of honor. Who's responsible for that? That question landed like a hammer. The economy? No, some people were prospering. My job? No, others with the same job were doing fine. My education? No, people with less education were succeeding. The government? The taxes? The cost of living? With each excuse that rose up, the answer became clearer and more uncomfortable. I was responsible. Completely, totally, inescapably responsible. And that realization, as uncomfortable as it was, became the most liberating moment of my life. The victim mentality is seductive because it removes the burden of change. If circumstances control outcomes, then there's nothing to do but wait for circumstances to improve. If the economy needs to change, the government needs to change, other people need to change, then personal responsibility dissolves into the background. It's comfortable there, it requires nothing. But comfort and growth don't live on the same block. And the price of that comfort is a life lived at the mercy of external forces that don't care about individual dreams. The victor mentality demands something different. It requires looking at the same circumstances and asking a different question. What can I do with what I have right now? Not next year when things get better, not when the raise comes through or when the market improves. Right now, today, with current resources and current knowledge. That shift in question changes everything because it moves power from external circumstances to internal decisions. Most people surrender their power in tiny, almost invisible ways. They surrender it in the morning when they hit snooze instead of rising with purpose. They give it away when they say yes to things that don't matter and no to things that do. They hand it over when they blame traffic for being late instead of leaving earlier, when they blame their metabolism instead of changing their diet, when they blame their spouse for a struggling marriage instead of becoming a better partner. Each surrender feels small, insignificant, barely worth noticing. But these small surrenders compound day after day, year after year, until one morning a person wakes up and wonders how life got so far off track. The economy will be what it is. The government will do what governments do. Other people will make their choices, pursue their paths, live their lives. None of that changes based on complaints or wishes or waiting. But there's one variable in the equation of life that responds immediately to attention and effort: personal choice. The choice to read or watch television, the choice to save or spend, the choice to exercise or make excuses, the choice to grow or coast. These choices, seemingly small in the moment, become the building blocks of destiny. Here's what makes personal responsibility both terrifying and thrilling. If it's your responsibility, it's also your opportunity. The same hands that created the current situation can create a different one. The same mind that learned limiting beliefs can learn empowering philosophies. The same person who built a life by default can build one by design. But it starts with that uncomfortable acceptance. The buck stops here. The responsibility is mine. The power is mine, and the results will be mine. Life doesn't respond to needs. Needs are everywhere. Billions of people need things. And the universe isn't set up to deliver based on desperation or desire. Life responds to deserving. It responds to the person who plants in the spring because they understand the law of the harvest. It responds to the person who studies because they understand the law of knowledge. It responds to the person who serves because they understand the law of compensation. These laws don't care about needs. They respond to alignment with their principles. The shift from victim to victor, from blaming to claiming, from waiting to acting, this shift doesn't require permission, perfect conditions, or a complete understanding of the path ahead. It requires one decision, made and remade every day. I am responsible for my life, and I will treat it accordingly. Not tomorrow, not when things get easier. Today, right now, with this moment and this choice, that decision, that simple but profound acceptance of personal responsibility becomes the foundation for everything that follows. It's the crack in the door that lets light into a dark room. It's the first step on a journey from where life is to where it could be. And once that door opens, once that step is taken, the entire landscape of possibility shifts. Because the person who accepts responsibility for their current situation also claims the power to change it. And that power, properly understood and consistently applied, can transform not just a year, but an entire life. Everything begins with philosophy. Not the complicated academic kind that requires degrees and decades of study, but the simple kind, the ideas and beliefs a person carries about how life works. Philosophy is the set of conclusions drawn from experience and education, the filter through which every circumstance gets interpreted, the invisible hand that guides every decision. A poor philosophy creates poor results as predictably as planting corn produces corn. The philosophy "I'll start saving when I make more money" guarantees that more money never gets saved because the philosophy stays the same regardless of income. The philosophy "success is for other people" ensures it remains that way. Show me what someone believes about life, money, relationships, and health, and I'll show you their future with remarkable accuracy. Philosophy shapes attitude, and attitude determines approach. Two people face the same rainy day. One sees an inconvenience, another sees needed rain for crops. Two people get the same criticism. One sees an attack, another sees free consulting. The external circumstance is identical. The internal response creates entirely different experiences. Attitude isn't about pretending problems don't exist or painting everything with artificial positivity. It's about developing a practiced response to life that serves growth rather than surrender. The attitude that says, "This is happening for me, not to me," opens doors that the attitude, "Why does this always happen to me?" keeps permanently locked. But here's where most personal development teachings miss the mark: a positive attitude without a sound. Philosophy is just wishful thinking, and both philosophy and attitude without activity produce nothing but well-intentioned disappointment. Activity is where philosophy and attitude meet reality. It's the bridge between internal beliefs and external results. A person can have a brilliant philosophy about health and a fantastic attitude about exercise, but without the activity of actually moving their body, nothing changes. The activity must match the philosophy, must be fueled by the attitude, must be consistent enough and intelligent enough to produce results. This is where it gets interesting, though. Massive activity in the wrong direction, guided by a flawed philosophy, just gets a person to the wrong destination faster. I've seen people work incredibly hard their entire lives and end up with little to show for it. Not because they were lazy, they worked harder than most. Not because they lacked positive attitudes, they maintained optimism despite circumstances. They lacked a philosophy that connected their efforts to meaningful results. They were busy, but busy doesn't equal productive. They were active, but activity without philosophy is like a boat without a rudder, lots of motion, no real direction. Results are simply feedback. They're the report card that shows whether philosophy, attitude, and activity are aligned with natural laws. Poor results don't mean try the same thing harder. They mean examine the philosophy that produced them. If someone's been working on their business for 5 years and it's barely surviving, the question isn't, should I work more hours? The question is, what philosophy about business, customers, and value am I operating from that produces these results? Results tell the truth when ego wants to lie. They show what's really happening versus what we wish was happening. The final piece is lifestyle. And lifestyle is the visible scorecard of everything else. How a person lives, the home they keep, the car they drive, the clothes they wear, the food they eat, the company they keep, reflects their philosophy about life. Not in a superficial judge people by possessions way, but in a lifestyle reveals priorities way. Someone says they value health but lives on fast food and skipped workouts. The lifestyle reveals the real philosophy. Someone says family matters most but works 80 hours a week and misses every important moment. The lifestyle tells the truth. Lifestyle is philosophy made visible, and it doesn't lie. I watched this play out years ago with two people who worked at the same company, same position, same pay. One lived paycheck to paycheck, constantly stressed about money, driving a car that barely ran, living in an apartment that depressed him every time he walked through the door. The other, same income, lived in a modest but well-kept home, drove a reliable car, had money in savings, took his family on vacations. The difference wasn't the paycheck, that was identical. The difference was philosophy. One believed, I'll never get ahead on this income, and spent accordingly. The other believed, I can build something valuable with what I have, and spent accordingly. Same income, different philosophy, completely different lifestyles within 5 years. The one with the poor philosophy didn't just have less money, that was the symptom, not the disease. His attitude suffered because constant financial pressure creates constant stress. His activity became scattered because he was always chasing quick fixes instead of building systems. His results reinforced his limiting beliefs, creating a cycle that fed itself. His lifestyle reflected all of it, chaos outside, mirroring chaos inside. The philosophy, I can't get ahead, became a self-fulfilling prophecy, proved true by the very results it created. The other one understood something crucial. Philosophy compounds. Every dollar saved based on a philosophy of stewardship creates more savings. Every book read based on a philosophy of continuous learning creates more knowledge. Every healthy meal based on a philosophy of self-respect creates more energy. These small philosophy-driven decisions accumulate like interest in a bank account. Not overnight, not dramatically, but consistently and predictably. Give it 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and the compound effect creates a lifestyle that looks lucky to people who don't understand the philosophy that built it. Here's the trap most people fall into. They work incredibly hard on the wrong things. They major in minor things, spending enormous energy on activities that don't align with any meaningful philosophy. They spend hours perfecting the color of their business cards while their actual business struggles. They spend years blaming circumstances while refusing to examine the philosophy creating those circumstances. They stay busy, legitimately busy, but the busyness serves as protection from the harder work of developing a sound philosophy. The shift happens when someone stops asking, how do I get different results? And starts asking, what philosophy produces the results I want? That question changes everything because it moves attention from symptoms to causes. Poor health is a symptom. The philosophy, I'll take care of myself later, is the cause. Broken relationships are symptoms. The philosophy, people should accept me as I am without reciprocal acceptance, is the cause. Financial struggle is a symptom. The philosophy, money doesn't matter, or I'll never have enough, is the cause. Changing philosophy isn't comfortable. It means admitting that current results came from current thinking, and different results require different thinking. It means the person who got you here isn't the person who can get you there. It means becoming a student again, questioning assumptions, challenging comfortable beliefs, and rebuilding from foundation up. But here's the beautiful part. Philosophy can change in a moment. The decision to adopt a new belief, to test a different approach, to challenge an old assumption, that happens in an instant. The results take time, yes, but the philosophy shift that starts the process can happen right now. The person who understands these 5 pieces, philosophy, attitude, activity, results, lifestyle, and how they connect, holds the master key to change. They don't chase results directly. They build the philosophy that produces those results naturally. They don't manufacture artificial positivity. They develop an attitude based on sound principles. They don't just stay busy. They engage in activities that align with their philosophy and serve their goals. They don't make excuses for poor results. They use results as feedback to refine their approach. And they don't envy others' lifestyles. They build their own through consistent application of tested principles. This understanding creates something powerful, the ability to look at any area of life and trace it back to its philosophical roots. Struggling financially? Check the philosophy about money, earning, and value. Relationships failing? Check the philosophy about people, communication, and commitment. Health declining? Check the philosophy about the body, discipline, and long-term thinking. Every result has a philosophical parent, and changing the parent changes the child. The question becomes, what philosophy guides life right now, not the one claimed in conversation, but the one proved by results? Because that philosophy, whether conscious or unconscious, whether helpful or harmful, is creating tomorrow's reality today. And if tomorrow's reality needs to look different than today's, the philosophy creating it needs to change first. There are 2 paths in life, and every person walks one of them. The first is the path of discipline, making choices that serve long-term goals, even when short-term comfort calls louder. The second is the path of regret, looking back at years of undisciplined choices and wishing for another chance. Both paths have a price. Discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. The interesting thing about these prices is that discipline must be paid up front daily consistently, while regret gets paid later with interest compounded by lost time and missed opportunities. Choose the pain of discipline or the pain of regret, but understand this, one of them is coming. Time is the ultimate equalizer and the ultimate resource. Rich and poor alike get 24 hours each day. The successful and the struggling receive the same allotment. Nobody gets more, nobody gets less, and nobody gets yesterday back to spend differently. Taking control of time means understanding that saying yes to one thing always means saying no to something else. Every hour spent watching television is an hour not spent reading. Every evening wasted scrolling through other people's lives is an evening not invested in building a personal life worth living. Time doesn't multiply, it only divides, and the person who fails to master their time fails to master their life. The discipline of time starts with a hard truth. Most people spend their hours like they have an unlimited supply. They spend time on things that don't matter, as if nothing matters. They give their best hours to someone else's dream while their own dreams wait for leftover energy that never comes. The art of saying no becomes crucial here, not the apologetic, guilt-ridden no that leaves everyone dissatisfied, but the clear, firm, peaceful no that protects what matters most. Every commitment accepted without considering its true cost steals from something more valuable. The calendar filled with other people's priorities leaves no room for personal ones. Health operates under the same principle of personal responsibility. Nobody else can exercise for anyone. Nobody else can choose the salad over the burger, the stairs over the elevator, the early night over the late show. The body responds to what gets put into it and what gets demanded of it. Feed it garbage, and it produces garbage energy. Demand nothing of it, and it provides nothing in return. The health crisis most people face isn't about genetics or bad luck. It's about years of undisciplined choices compounded into predictable results. The body gives warnings before it gives up. The extra weight doesn't appear overnight. The loss of energy happens gradually. The diagnosis that shocks a person at 50 was built by daily choices from 20 to 49. But here's what makes health both frustrating and hopeful. It responds to change. The same body that declined under neglect improves under attention. Not instantly, not magically, but consistently and predictably. The person who starts walking today won't run a marathon tomorrow, but 6 months of consistent walking creates a different body than 6 months of continued sitting. The choice and the discipline to follow through on that choice belongs to the individual. Relationships demand their own form of discipline, perhaps the most challenging kind because they involve other people's emotions, expectations, and responses. Every relationship operates like a bank account with deposits and withdrawals. Kind words, kept promises, genuine attention, these are deposits. Harsh criticism, broken commitments, distracted presence, these are withdrawals. Most struggling relationships suffer from years of withdrawals without sufficient deposits, and the account eventually goes bankrupt. The discipline of relationships means making deposits even when tired, frustrated, or convinced that the other person should make the first move. The marriage that falls apart after 20 years didn't fail in year 20. It failed in year 3 when small issues got ignored. In year 7 when communication became mechanical. In year 12 when separate lives became the comfortable norm. But nobody noticed because the decline happened in tiny increments, invisible day to day, but devastating decade to decade. The discipline to invest in relationships when they're good prevents the crisis that comes when they're not. The time to fix the roof is when the sun is shining, not when the storm hits. But most people wait for the storm and then wonder why the repair costs so much. Financial discipline might be the most visible and most avoided discipline of all. Money is emotional, tied to identity and security and comparison. But money also follows clear principles. And the person who learns and applies these principles builds wealth, while the person who ignores them builds debt. The 70/30 rule provides a simple framework. Live on 70% of income, use the remaining 30% for investing, giving, and building reserves. Not 70% after paying for everything wanted, 70% of total income, period. This rule forces the discipline of distinguishing between needs and wants, between what's required and what's merely desired. Most people reverse this formula. They spend 100%, finance another 20 or 30%, and wonder why they're drowning financially. The discipline of spending less than earned seems simple until emotion enters the picture. The car that announces status, the house that impresses neighbors, the lifestyle that looks successful even while creating stress. These purchases feel like rewards for hard work, but they're actually penalties that require even harder work to maintain. The person earning $50,000 and saving $15,000 has more financial security than the person earning $200,000 and saving nothing. Financial intelligence means understanding that money is a tool, not a goal. The goal is security, freedom, options, and peace of mind. Money provides these things, but only when handled with discipline. Reading books about money, studying how it works, learning from people who've built wealth through principles rather than luck, this education pays. Dividends that compound for decades. The books not read can't help. The knowledge not pursued remains forever out of reach. Becoming a student of money means treating financial education as seriously as any degree program, because the returns from this education exceed the returns from most formal credentials. All these disciplines, time, health, relationships, finances, connect to one central discipline, the discipline of learning. The person who stops learning stops growing, and the person who stops growing starts dying, even if the body keeps breathing. Learning means reading books that challenge current thinking. It means seeking mentors who've achieved what's desired. It means attending seminars, taking courses, investing in education, even when, especially when, it feels expensive or inconvenient. The investment in personal development always returns more than it costs, but the return comes later, and later requires faith in the process. Setting up systems makes discipline easier. The morning routine that includes exercise removes the daily decision about whether to exercise. The automatic transfer that moves money to savings before spending removes the willpower required to save what's left. The weekly date night scheduled in advance removes the drift that kills relationships. Systems don't guarantee success, but they remove the friction that prevents it. Discipline becomes habit, habit becomes character, and character becomes destiny. Most people don't plan because they don't see the value yet. They watch successful people and attribute their success to talent, connections, or fortunate timing, anything except the unglamorous truth that success came from detailed planning followed by disciplined execution. Planning feels tedious when compared to the excitement of spontaneous living, but spontaneous living leads to predictable destinations. Wherever the current takes you, which is usually downstream, swimming upstream, reaching destinations that require effort and intention, demands a map. That map is a plan, and the person without a plan is planning to accept whatever life delivers by default. The difference between a wish and a goal sits in specificity and deadline. I want to be wealthy is a wish, vague, unmeasurable, without timeline. I will increase my income by 30% within 12 months by improving my skills and providing more value in my marketplace is a goal, specific, measurable, time-bound. Wishes are passive, goals are active. Wishes hope for external forces to align favorably. Goals identify what must be done and commit to doing it. A person can wish for decades and end up nowhere different. A person with clear goals and the discipline to pursue them creates change in months that others don't achieve in years. The 5-year vision provides the starting point. Not a fantasy about winning lotteries or getting discovered, but a realistic projection based on disciplined effort compounded over time. Where should finances be in 5 years? What should health look like? What relationships should be built or deepened? What skills should be mastered? The 5-year vision painted clearly becomes the North Star that guides daily decision. When the vision is vivid enough, opportunities that serve it become obvious, and distractions that oppose it become easier to decline. Breaking that 5-year vision into yearly milestones makes the journey manageable. Year 1 focuses on foundation, establishing systems, building habits, acquiring basic knowledge. Year 2 builds on that foundation with increased competence and consistency. Each year serves the larger vision while remaining achievable in itself. The yearly goals then break into quarterly objectives, and quarterly objectives divide into monthly targets. By the time a goal reaches monthly measurement, it stops feeling overwhelming and starts feeling doable. The mountain that intimidates from the base becomes a series of manageable climbs when broken into daily elevations gained. Monthly targets translate into weekly actions, and weekly actions become daily disciplines. This is where life actually changes, not in the grand 5-year vision, but in what gets done today. The daily disciplines either serve the long-term vision or betray it. There's no neutral ground. The person who reads 30 minutes daily accumulates enough knowledge in a year to transform their understanding. The person who skips those 30 minutes daily for a year gains nothing except the awareness that another year passed without growth. Both people had the same amount of time, only one used it with intention. The evening review and morning preview create accountability to self. Before bed, reviewing the day honestly. What got accomplished? What got avoided? What worked? What needs adjustment? This review isn't about guilt or harsh self-judgment. It's about learning from each day and carrying those lessons forward. The morning preview then sets intention for the coming day. What are the 3 most important tasks? What distractions will likely appear? And how will they be handled? What would make today a success worth reviewing tonight? These 2 practices, evening review and morning preview, take 15 minutes combined, but provide clarity that most people search for their entire life. This daily rhythm of review and preview builds something powerful over time. Self-awareness. The person who consistently reviews their days begins noticing patterns invisible to those who simply react and move forward. They notice that certain activities energize while others drain. They recognize that specific environments foster productivity while others invite procrastination. They identify which relationships add value and which extract it. This awareness, gathered over weeks and months of honest review, becomes wisdom that guides better decisions. The unexamined day repeats tomorrow, the examined day improves it. Measuring progress matters, because what gets measured improves. The business that tracks numbers grows. The one that guesses struggles. The person who tracks their eating understands their habits. The one who eats unconsciously wonders why weight won't change. The relationship that includes regular check-ins stays connected. The one that assumes everything is fine often isn't. Measurement provides objective feedback that opinion and emotion distort. The scale doesn't lie about weight. The bank account doesn't lie about spending. The calendar doesn't lie about time allocation. These measurements tell uncomfortable truths that ego wants to deny, but accepting those truths creates the foundation for change. Keeping a journal becomes essential for anyone serious about growth. Memory is unreliable, selective, and self-serving. The person who trusts their memory to guide their future gives control to the least trustworthy record keeper. A journal captures lessons when they're fresh, records progress when it's happening, documents patterns that become visible only over time. The journal from 5 years ago shows how far someone has come and reminds them of lessons learned and sometimes forgotten. The person who doesn't keep a journal pays for the same lessons repeatedly because they forget they already paid once. The law of average states that a person becomes the average of the 5 people they spend the most time with. Look at those 5 people, their income, their health, their relationships, their attitudes, and the future becomes visible. This isn't about judging people or abandoning friendships. It's about recognizing that environment shapes outcome. The person serious about growth must get serious about association. Spending time with people who complain, blame, and excuse produces those same tendencies. Spending time with people who plan, execute, and improve produces those tendencies instead. Association isn't everything, but it's not nothing either. Finding mentors, joining groups, focused on growth, attending events where serious people gather, these activities feel uncomfortable for most because they require admitting current limitations and seeking help. Pride says figure it out alone. Wisdom says learn from those ahead on the path. The mentor who shares lessons learned from experience provides shortcuts through territory that took them years to navigate. The book written by someone who achieved what's desired contains wisdom worth far more than its price. But these resources only help the person humble enough to be helped. Becoming more valuable increases earning capacity in any economy. The marketplace rewards value, not time. The person who provides more value gets paid more. Period. Complaining about wages while refusing to improve skills makes as much sense as complaining about harvest while refusing to plant better seeds. Skills, knowledge, communication, ability, reliability, creativity, these forms of value are within individual control and directly impact compensation. The question isn't how do I make my employer pay me more? The question is how do I become valuable enough that people seek my contribution? Life moves in seasons, and understanding these seasons prevents frustration during difficult times and complacency during easy ones. Winter comes, periods of challenge, reduction, and testing. Fighting winter makes it worse. Accepting it and using it for preparation makes it valuable. Spring follows, time for planting new ideas, starting new projects, taking new risks. Summer brings growth. What got planted shows results, and consistent nurturing produces harvest. Fall is for reaping, collecting rewards from earlier efforts and preparing for the next winter. Each season serves a purpose, and the person who learns to work with seasons rather than against them builds sustainable success. The transformation from where someone is to where they want to be doesn't happen through wishing or waiting. It happens through planning, executing, measuring, adjusting, and persisting until the vision becomes reality. The person who applies these principles consistently for 5 years creates a life that others attribute to luck. That perception is fine. Let them think it's luck while continuing the disciplined work that creates results. Because at the end of another year, another 5 years, another decade, one reality becomes undeniable. The life being lived is the life that was designed, one choice at a time, one day at a time, from this moment forward.